Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to Academy, powered by VRRC for round 3 of the Audi TT Cup. My name is Jack Oliphant and I'm joined as per usual in the virtual commentary box by Dave Marshall. Yesterday we saw the finale of the League of Champions, so now we're all about learning and training and gaining experience for some of the other drivers that hopefully we'll see in the higher echelons sooner rather than later. We are based tonight at my favourite track in the entire world, Donington Park. It's going to be a cracking night racing, I'm sure. 20 minutes in the first race, a 20-minute second race as well. First, full reverse grid, I believe we normally do as well. Or it might be top 10. I think they do change their mind every so often here, but in the Academy. But it should be awesome either way. And Dave, before we get going, how the devil are you?
Yeah, very, very good. And as he said, Donny, it's a little bit of one of my favourites as well, especially as a driver's track. It's really one of them where when you hook up the perfect lap, it is so satisfying.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. Got everything you want out of a racetrack. Heavy braking zones, overtaking opportunities, and nice fast-flowing corners. The Audi TT Cup then and the Academy. What are these drivers racing for exactly? Dave, why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, so as you can see, first place prize is one of our AOC gaming headphones, as well as 2 hours one-to-one coaching as well with that. Second place is a PowerMax Car Valet bucket, and also 1 hour's one-to-one online coaching. And third place gets you 1 hour's coaching on race car setup, and also 1 hour one-to-one coaching on driving techniques and things like that. So it's all, as you can see, it's all about trying to improve the driver as much as we can, as well as a few little goodies there for first and second place as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, the AOC gaming headphones, I haven't got them on at the moment, but I got given some by VRRC and AOC Gaming the other day, and I am very much excited to get them out of the box and get using them. The TT Cup, though, is it's a section of a bigger picture, really. In the Academy, you get taught how to drive all kinds of race cars, whether it be the Mazda MX-5, whether it be the Formula 4, which these drivers have already done. The Audi TT Cup that we're currently in with the push-to-pass system, another tactical use and something you have to think about throughout the entirety of a race, or the slippery and slidey Caterham 420R, which comes quickly after the Audi TT Cup as well. And just a couple of graphics ago, you may well have seen all the tracks that are included. Basically, whatever car you drive, whatever championship you enter into initially, say it's the Audi, say it's the Caterhams or the Mazdas, you drive the same track. So if you want to be involved in all 4 series, you will drive the same tracks 4 times, and it means you get to learn the tracks, and by the end of it, you will have perfected them. So you don't have to mess around thinking, oh, I have to learn the track and learn a new car. It's all exactly the same. Anyway, we're at Silverstone National for round 2. Unfortunately, it wasn't broadcast, but however, we are back tonight, so no harm done. Andy Dorman took the most amount of points there. He got a good haul, including Rich Hayden did as well. And Andy and Rich looking very quick in the practice times as well. Nicky Taylor came home in third, a very, very gutsy racer, shall we say. Looking forward to seeing how Nicky Taylor gets on here at Donington Park. And finally, Dave, why don't you take us through a little bit of the championship standings?
Yeah, well indeed. And as you can see, Rich Hayden is on top on 62, but incredibly close behind Nicky Taylor, just there in second place. Nicky getting a win in one of the races last week, which really helped his championship standings. Andy Dorman, a regular, consistent, really fast driver. And I tell you what, Jack, if the time's anything to go by in this practice, he's looking like a definite favourite here for tonight. As you see, a few penalties got dished out after the previous race there at Silverstone. There was a few judicials going on. To be fair, a lot of them, no malicious attempt at all, just a little bit loss of a control of the vehicle, bumping into the car in front and maybe a little bit of a spin. It's unfortunate to see, and we don't like to ever see it happen, but a driver does have to pay the price for causing another incident. Meanwhile, let's try and crack on and go straight into a live lap with me around here at Donington and see hopefully how it's done. So across across the line for round 3 of the VRRC Academy TT Cup, and it's down to turn 1, using a little bit of that pit entrance to open up turn 1, third gear. Try not to push it out onto that grass. It's very, very easy to do so. Now down the notorious Craner curves. Really, really sketchy at the start of a race on cold tyres, but you're going to try and get as far left to open up the old hairpin as possible. Fourth gear, your best drive through there. There's a little bit of the exit curve there, but make sure you're careful on track limits when you're cutting the apex. Up towards McLean's a really difficult corner, braking earlier than you think to roll the speed through the corner and getting on the power nicely. Up towards Coppers. Now this for me is the most difficult corner on the track, super blind apex, but you just got to roll it in when you get to that crest, and this is now a great opportunity for push to pass down towards the Fogarty S's, the chicane as we know it. This is going to be third gear through here, taking a lot of entry curves, so it's key that you get the car stopped and prepared for the curb. You can see nice and balanced through there. Fourth gear, short shift, and then towards the line. Make sure you tune in at 7:15 on the 30th of September to see how the TTs get on our Facebook and YouTube platforms. So there we go, a hot lap with myself round Donny, and as you see, it's all about the floor. Now it's really crucial round here from the hot lap. You can see how much gradient there is with the track involved here, so especially going down the Craner curves towards the old hairpin and getting the drive up the big hill all the way at the top. That's where the likes of the push to pass is going to be really, really crucial here tonight. Obviously it's 50 horsepower gain there on that push to pass boost. So as you can imagine, when you go up the hill, that's when it's actually worth more than when you go downhill. So that can be really used as a good overtaking opportunity. So this part here, Rich Hayden's going to try and get the best drive through the old hairpin as possible, and you would activate it now to try and get the drive up and alongside someone there. Obviously no push to pass is enabled during qualifying, so it's all about the outright pace of the driver. And as you see, Andy Dorman, one of our favourites that we did mention about there before we went into this qualifying session, was Andy Dorman was looking the favourite on the timing sheet, and as you can see, a 1:12.1 is an incredibly competitive time indeed. Be interested to see whether any drivers can try and get into that sub 1:12. Maybe a very high 1:11 is possible. And actually, as I say that, Andy Dorman currently gone purple in sector 1 as well. So Dorman on a very, very quick lap indeed. I wonder whether we'll see any drivers actually using a bit of that slipstream. You see these cars have a real big wing on the back of that boot there. And if a driver manages to get within that sort of 2 to 3 cars behind the driver, especially going up them big hills, we really will see a little bit of that that slipstream playing a part in maybe getting the best lap time possible. I believe Jack's just joined us back after smelling smoke in his house, so let's hope that is all okay there, Jack, for you.
Yeah, the fact that I'm back probably means that it is okay. I'm not just letting it rage downstairs and cooking my dog. No, don't worry. I'm not that hungry. I don't need hot dogs. No, it's, yeah, hopefully it's just a bonfire outside. But you're absolutely right. I've been listening in. Andy Dorman is absolutely flying, isn't he? He's got a purple sector 1 on that previous lap, but then he just went a touch slower, I think, in his third sector, which means he was just outside the 1 minute 11s. And Rich Hayden, he was very quick through sector 1, but then went wide on old hairpin as well. So we're looking at Luke Weston now. We met Luke actually. Oh, well, I met Luke at Silverstone, and when we had the VRRC sim truck at Silverstone to have a go at for the British touring cars recently, and yeah, I didn't realise that he was only 15. For some reason, I always pictured Luke Weston as a 35-year-old with a big bushy beard. It's amazing the pictures you build up of these people that you commentate on and have never actually met, and then you meet them in real life and they look nothing like you imagine. But he's going very well at the moment as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was really very, very quick and got to pace very quick in the sim truck indeed. And I believe it was an F4, Jack, so very, very fast indeed. Andy Dorman actually saying that has just gone purple again in Sector 1. So obviously that lap isn't quite enough for him. He's really trying to press on here. Let's see if he can keep it nice and clean. It was indeed just staying within the track there, not clipping any gravel. That was about perfect. And yet again through here, he's just going to modulate that throttle, make sure it's not going to push that front end too far on, and he might be just getting the slightest bit of slipstream from, I believe, Rich Hayden in front. But this is where it really matters. This last chicane is super hard to get, super consistent. You can see just throwing the car over the inside the sausage curbs, but he's bailing. So I presume it wasn't the middle sector that he needed there to try and beat his best lap time.
Yeah, a bit of a shame, really. I mean, his middle sector wasn't bad. To put it in perspective, his middle sector, Rich's best, which he has just done, is a 26.6. Andy Dorman's, which wasn't his best on that lap, was a 26.5. So it's a 10th quicker than Rich Hayden's best middle sector so far. And obviously, I think it was something to do, it must have been to do with that final corner that he just went too far over the curves and just sent too much speed over it. But I'm sure he'll get back out there. He's got 7 minutes to go as Kenny Press goes up into 6th position. We saw a number of these drivers in the League of Champions grand finale yesterday, didn't we, Dave? One of which, Andy Carroll. Kenny Press was in there as well, and
Paul
obviously
Laramie.
Rich Hayden, Paul Laramie, Andy Dorman. So loads of drivers that have sort of delved between the two. Simon Thorpe was in it. Unfortunately, he had a broken car by the end of it. But yeah, loads of drivers that have sort of blended between the two, and we've seen a lot of improvements from those drivers, and that's why they're sort of quite close to the top, really, if you're talking Andy Dorman and Kenny Press especially.
Yeah, so actually I was just talking to Tom O'Farrell, the person who's doing the broadcast at the moment, and actually we were both commenting on how much particularly Andy Dorman and Paul Laramie are really starting to get to grips with the sim now. You know, it wasn't too long back where Paul was really struggling to get within a second of them pole laps, and as you can see, he's right on the tail now of the rest of this grid, 0.7 off. And actually in the League of Champions race last night in the MX5s, he was actually leading for the entire lap and starting to pull away and look really promising. So Paul really has come on leaps and bounds since joining the academy, as well as Andy Dorman. And I've got to admit, looking at the lap time, I tell you what, Dorman is a serious contender for some of these big championships now and can be right on the heels of them podium finishes.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he gets on with the mini challenge that's happening at the end of October, the official mini challenge e-series that we're hosting on VRRC, and I'm very much hoping that Andy Dorman joins in on that, because I think it would really be a good showcase of what how well he has improved and how well he can do going forward as well. Simon Reed is currently in 3rd place, but he's got a green sector 1, sorry, so he's only about half a tenth behind Rich Hayden. He's only about a tenth behind Andy Dorman. So you never know if, I was about to say, if he gets a little bit of a slipstream assistance here, but actually one of those drivers just pulling all the way out of the way. So there is no advantage gained for Simon Reed. He's going to come down into the final couple of corners. Nicely clipping on the right-hand side there, to be fair. Uses all the track, but not too much. You've got a green sector 1, green sector 2, and it's just lagged. I don't know what's happened, Dave.
He's done it.
Oh, he's done it. He has. He's just come back and he has got on pole position by 0.02 of a second.
Incredibly close lap time. It did look very, very clean from Simon in both sectors 1, 2 and 3. As you said, just getting just the right amount of curb there through the last chicane. A little bit of the right, a little bit of the left, and trying to get really good drive on exit. You see Paul Laramie actually doing a similar thing there. He could have maybe ran that road a little bit further out on exit, but it is an improvement by Paul Laramie, a 1:12.5, so now within half a second of that pole lap. But yeah, 200s, and then to be fair, it's only 700s from Rich Hayden from Paul, so incredibly close lap times here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps getting closer, doesn't it? I think there's no one. He had to go all the way down for the gap between Taylor O'Flanagan to Brad Smith. That is the only gap in the top 8 that is, in fact, that's the only gap in the top 12 that is a tenth of a second. Everything else is hundredths we're talking, so it's going to be incredible. Nicky Taylor to Marmik Satar is 100th of a second, so I'll tell you what, I'm very much looking forward to this. And then you have to throw in there the push to pass, and I know you were explaining what the push to pass is Dave while I was checking whether there was a fire raging downstairs in my kitchen. But it is going to be crucial because there's more laps than there are push-to-passes. You're only allowed 15 push-to-passes.
Yeah.
I think there are more than 15 laps, if I'm not mistaken. So you're going to have to be slightly tactical about when you use it and whether you use it on the defensive or the offensive.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I'll quickly touch upon what, first of all, this push-to-pass feature is that we're talking about. So push-to-pass is basically where you get an extra 30 horsepower boost at the press of a button on the driver's steering wheel. As you've already said, you get 15 per session. So obviously the race is 20 minutes long. So as you can tell, there is not enough push-to-passes for the amount of laps that we're going to see. From talking to the drivers, it sounds like 2 push-to-passes per lap is about the ideal amount to try and get the fastest lap time possible. So it's going to be a question, are them drivers going to use it in the race strategy and use it to get past them drivers early on in the race? But also, if they get clean air, you want to use them push-to-passes while your tyres are still fresh. If you leave it too late on in the race and you try and use them push-to-passes, that's when you might just start to get a little bit of front-end push, start to run it a little bit wide on exit of the corners, and you're going to find it harder to get that extra time. So it really does add a very, very good strategy to these races. And it's a little bit, as I said before, like an LMP style sort of thing with the KERS technology you get in LMP driving, where you get an extra boost. And it really adds a big variation and also allows for some really good overtaking moves here in the Audi TT Cup.
Andy Dorman on pole position all of a sudden. Again, he's delved into the 1 minute 11. 1 minute 11.965. Wow. Very quick time indeed. He's about, well, it's still under a tenth of a second to Simon Reed, but a very impressive time. Simon Reed was actually slightly quicker on that previous lap in Sector 2, but he ended up coming into the pit, so not sure if he just didn't have enough fuel or whether he screwed up one of the corners, not sure. Luke Weston catapults himself up to 4th place, and he's got, it came across the line. Actually, no, he was already in 4th place, wasn't he? But I think he just slightly improved on his lap time. Marmik Satar rounds out the top 5, Nicky Taylor in 6th, Andy Carroll in 7th. Marmik Satar might have a good lap here. He went green in Sector 1. Sector 2, I mean, it wasn't a slow Sector 2. It wasn't his absolute 100% best. But as he comes across the line here, let's see where Marmik goes. Goes into 4th place. Yeah, Marmik Satar into 4th. Upsets Luke Weston on that one.
Yeah, so fantastic loop there by Marmik.
Oh,
Andy
sorry,
Dorman,
Andy Dorman. Bloody,
with an absolute stormer.
That's absolutely awesome, isn't it? I mean, that is criminally quick. An 11.7. That 3rd sector, I think he just jumped over all the curves. He must have just ignored it and straight lined it to get that lap time out there.
Yeah, so it's one of them corners where, especially going into that last chicane, if you can get the brakes absolutely spot on and use it to rotate the front of the car, you can really let off an almost straight line through that last chicane. But the amount of times you'll get that perfect is maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 20 times, and it looks like Dorman has absolutely nailed it on that run, because his sector 1 and 2 actually wasn't the best he could have done. So Andy Dorman potentially could go faster, but the chance of him repeating that last sector is, well, we'll wait and see, but I don't think that's going to be possible.
All of a sudden, that is the biggest gap. You have to actually know, John Jones to Simon Thorpe, 14th to 15th, is 2.5 tenths. Andy Dorman to Simon Reed is 2.5 tenths as well. So the checkered flag has come out. Rich Hayden is in 3rd place and has taken the checkered. Andy Dorman on pole, taking the checkered. So Simon Reed, Marmik Satar. So the top 4 aren't changing unless Luke Weston can do something about it. But he hasn't been a quick sector 1 or 2, and he comes across the line, stays in 5th position. Just having a look, I think most of the people have taken the checkered. Nicky Taylor we're currently focusing on, but it's not a quick sector 1 or 2. Carroll's taking the flag, so Flanagan, Smith and Felvis. It looks like this is going to be pretty much how we're standing going into the grid for race number 1 this evening. Remember, 20-minute race.
Oh, Nicky Taylor.
Oh, wow.
4th.
Wow, that's a huge sector 3. That is very impressive, isn't it, really, there, Dave? Because that is a 16.8 in the 3rd sector is really very quick. So, yeah, Nicky Taylor proving me wrong and saying that he can shake up the top 5. And Luke Weston and Marmik Satar have to sit there and just take the fact that they've been pipped by a driver. So, that's how we're going to stand into race 1. But if qualifying is anything to go by, Dave, it's going to be extremely tight.
Yeah, and you know what? That for me is the definition of a driver who hasn't quite hooked up first and second sector, and he goes, you know what? Let's sod it. Let's just throw it through that chicane. Let's see what happens. And I tell you what, it really delivered when it mattered. Fair play, Nicky Taylor, getting it in a P4.
Yeah, I would know. Sometimes when you get the pressure off, you just sort of get a bit more relaxed, don't you? And all of a sudden, the car flows a lot nicer when you're not thinking about it. But you can talk to our pole man, Dave. Andy Dorman's in the commentary box.
We can indeed. So we'll go down to Dorman, and we were actually just talking, saying actually you've got the biggest gap on the grid from second to first place. It was one of them laps where we were watching your sector times, and it wasn't your fastest first or sector that you managed to do, but you absolutely nailed that sector 3 to bring home an 11.7 lap time without push to pass. Incredible.
He's speechless.
I believe we do have Dorman there. Is your mic unmuted, Andy, or have you got it on push to talk?
Are you there, Dave?
Oh, there.
We are indeed. There you go, Andy. We can hear you now, loud and clear.
Yeah, the track temperature's a bit warmer than practice has been. It's been a bit tricky to get the first couple of sectors sort of set up.
Ah, so it's actually the track temps have sort of lent itself to not maybe the ideal scenario, but I tell you what, you've still managed to put it on pole by a good chunk. I take it race strategy wise, it's just going to be making sure you get as good a start as possible and getting that inside line covered down to turn 1 to block Simon Reed off.
Yeah, and just keep it on the track and see where we get to.
Well, it's a phenomenal effort so far, Dorman. You've clearly got the pace here in the car, and we were actually on board with you as well. Noticed how smooth your steering inputs were there, really not scrubbing too much of that tyre off. So hopefully as well, your tyre strategy as well should mean you've got plenty tyre left there towards the end. Great job putting it on pole, especially by as big of a margin as you had, and really looking forward to seeing whether you can make race 1 come to you. Well done, Andy.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And that was Dave Marshall chatting to our pole man, Andy Dorman. He'll be hoping to convert that pole position to a nice clean start and then to pull away, won't he, Dave? But qualifying is one thing. It's being able to obviously throw one lap together is all very well and nice. But realistically, he did only really throw one of those laps together, didn't he? Maybe 2 in that 15-minute period. So the rest of them, Simon Reed, Rich Hayden, Nicky Taylor, were all very close. So it's with the push to passes added on, they could really see to sort of try and get their focus in on the poleman, try and get him. I've just realised that we have only 1 minute and 50 seconds to go. So, well, Dave, what are you expecting from this one? You got Andy Dorman on pole position, obviously, but then you got some drivers that maybe you think could really push forward. My eyes are on Luke Weston and Andy Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, we know how strong Nicky Taylor is in race trim. He's one of them drivers that even if quali doesn't come to him, we know he pushes through the grid. He's incredibly committed for some moves, and when it pays off, he can get through that grid incredibly quickly indeed. Andy Dorman, you have to rule as being the favourite. He has got outright the more speed, and we've seen he's also brilliant on strategy regarding that push to pass, often using exactly the right amount of them spread out throughout the race. But I don't think Simon Reed or Rich Hayden is going to make this easy at all. Maybe catching them out with them push to passes and not using them in the places you maybe expect, and that's when it can be really, really damaging.
We were speaking to Rich Hayden, though, before, weren't we? And the fact that, although he's on the grid, he's even sort of messing about with the idea of potentially sort of pulling out if he sort of doesn't want to ruin anyone's championship, basically, does he? So we could see him potentially sort of take it a touch easier. He won't be throwing it up the inside as much as maybe Simon Reed will be interested, or Nicky Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard as a race organizer to know whether to take a step back in the championship. But as far as I'm concerned, Rich has every as much right to be on the grid there as any other driver. Let's hope he just keeps it clean, keeps his nose out of any trouble. But I tell you what, he's winning the championship at the moment. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as he hands the prize down, there's no problem there.
Exactly. So as the lights come on, we're about to get ready, and the Audi TT Cup is off here at Donington Park for race number 1, and pretty much the front 3 are all using push to pass already off the line. And I think Andy Dorman's going to lead their way into T1 with Simon Reed, followed by Rich Hayden. But look at the 3 abreast drivers coming in the background. I think Marmik Satar is looking very interested going down Craner curves, and he makes himself into 3rd place. Rich Hayden's having to recover on that push to pass that he used very early days. Marmik Satar does manage to get into 3rd place, but here comes Luke Weston, and Rich Hayden seems to be getting mugged here off the start. Nicky Taylor's in 6th, Andy Carroll in 7th, but they're all having to follow Andy Dorman at the moment.
Yeah, and that was Rich Hayden going very, very wide indeed, going out of the old hairpin. It's looking very, very close up in front, and oh, that was, I believe, a lag spike, so we'll hopefully get that nice and clean. There's 2 drivers off in the gravel trap. I believe it's Kenny Press and Paul Zanatachi. Unfortunately, Paul has been so unlucky with his starts here all the way through the academy so far. I don't know whether that will be a safety car. It might well indeed be. Let's see if we can see whether the group is bunching up here or whether or not. I believe it is a safety car, so you can see the drivers are weaving. Dorman got a brilliant start, was going with Simon Reed, but this is not going to go to his plan, is it? It's going to have to regroup all the way back up, and it means he's going to have to work even harder to get that advantage yet again.
I was going to say, it's either a safety car or they're taking a very interesting line coming out of that final corner, but it is a bit of a shame. And Kenny Press is now in the pits, although Paul Laramie hasn't got the memo, and that does look a little bit of a damaged front end, doesn't he? Is he got a little bit of suspension damage that maybe he didn't realise until he went through that first corner? He goes down Craner curves and he looks fairly safe and happy. We'll just see it through old hairpin. It seems all right, that, Dave.
As long as the steering wheel seems reasonably straight, I think we'll be all right there. There's not a great deal of front aero on these cars. It's all in that rear wing. So I think realistically, Paul looks like he's got away with it. You can see the grid starting to form back up. So the safety car will be in on this lap. It's going to be crucial for Dorman to judge when to go here. Is he going to use a push to pass to really pull away nice and early, or is he going to hold that grid up right till we get towards the chicane and then decide to go? So let's see if Dorman's judged this well. I believe Dorman has gone by the looks of it. So Dorman and Simon Reed have both got the jump on Marmik, but then Marmik has also got the jump on Luke Weston there in 4th place. So brilliant start there by the front 2, catching the rest out completely.
Yeah, Simon Reed actually used his push to pass whilst trying to get onto the back of Andy Dorman going into the final chicane. That did leave him without the push to pass. Oh, look at the background. That's Nicky Taylor.
Oh,
we love watching Nicky Taylor getting his elbows out, don't we? It's one of the best sights in VRRC. And Andy Carroll felt the full force of him coming through then as well. So Nicky Taylor moving into the top 5. Brad Smith on board with, going side by side with Andy Carroll, who looks to be losing out on another position as he gets forced wide in Craner curves. On the inside for old hairpin, don't touch each other's back wheels. They all blend in rather nicely, apart from Rich Hayden, who decides to try and take the scenic route around the outside of everyone. It doesn't quite happen. But here in the background as well, Taylor and Flanagan and Zanatechi are getting nice and interested with each other. And Marmik Satar, Luke Weston have had a touch of damage, and that's why, look at Marmik Satar flying off of the right-hand side. Brad Smith is on the left, and that's gutting for Marmik Satar, who was in 3rd place, doing really, really well. Andy Carroll's gone down into 8th position, so it does lead the top 5. It's Andy Dorman, Simon Reed, Nicky Taylor in 3rd, Luke Weston in 4th, Brad Smith in 5th.
Yeah, so that was really unlucky. We didn't actually see what happened there, and that is a massive lunge from, I believe that was Brad Smith on Luke Weston. Luke Weston judging it absolutely perfectly to just give it a little break and trying to tuck back in there, not losing too much time. But who is that? That's made the outside move round the outside there. I believe it's Kyle. Kyle with a phenomenal move, unfortunately getting a little bit elbowed out there from Rich Hayden, and hopefully this is a safe rejoin. Go down the Craner curves. We don't want this to be 3 wide down here. I think, you know, fine well, Jack, that set of corners is fast enough to take, but in a single car, never mind 3 wide.
Yeah, I have done it 3 wide once, and I was going into the inside of old hairpin, and I managed to make it stick, but I tell you what, 2 wheels on the grass on the outside of Craner curves is never what you really want to happen. But at the moment, they've all seemed to have gotten through there quite okay for now. Marmik Satar, that's going to really hurt him, Dave, isn't it? Because he did so well in the opening exchanges to try and get himself up to P3, and now he's going to have to try and do it all again, ready for race number 2. Carl Felvis right on the back of Paul Laramie, and here goes the push to pass, and look at the difference that extra 30 horsepower makes. Flying down towards the final chicane. The damage on Paul Laramie's car evident there, but to be honest, they both got damaged, and Felvis is risking making it worse, clattering over the curbs like that. Of course, when you do use the push to pass, Dave, the braking zones change, don't they? Because you're taking another 5-10 miles an hour in.
Yeah, sorry to butt in there, but Rich Hayden with the push to pass, managing to get up the inside of 2 cars there, and as he managed to go up the inside, going down the crater curves, this is going to be incredibly brave. 2 by 2, Kyle on the outside. Kyle's took the good decision there just to tuck in, but actually it's Rich Hayden with a push to pass down the hill. That is incredibly brave. I thought he was carrying a lot of speed into there, and somehow he's managed to keep it holding on. But Kyle, will he use the push to pass now? This is the time to use it when you're going uphill. And Paul Laramie is as well, so we've got overtakes all over the grid here at the moment. But I think we have got to quickly touch upon as well Andy Dorman still with the lead over Simon Reed in second place. Nicky Taylor just about hanging on to that podium as well, with Simon Reed not too far there in front of him as well.
Here comes Milner on Laramie. Laramie squeezing him onto the inside there, not leaving him any room at all as he forces him all the way to the outside. Now Laramie in the middle of the track, but it's a huge turn at the back end as well. Satar versus O'Flanagan. They get into each other's grills, and unfortunately Flanagan ends up facing the wrong way. He has to be careful on that rejoin. It's a bit of a dodgy area to try and rejoin, but luckily, well, say luckily, he was already towards the back of the field. So no harm done, no one flying through just yet. Here is John Jones and Sam Milner. John Jones looking to the right-hand side. Now this is crucially, this isn't the Craner curves yet, this is Hollywood. So now as we go down the Craner curves on the left-hand side, you can just see that
Simon
Jones
Thorpe
had to come out of it, and here comes Simon Thorpe. Jones cuts across his front end and takes old Hairpin's apex, but they're getting very interested in each other at the back there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are indeed. And I tell you what, Paul Laramie, a driver that we were saying is mightily impressive at the moment, is finding himself up into P9 at the moment and looking great for that reverse grid. So well done, Paul. And also that was a move from Brad Smith on Luke Weston there, just managing to get up the inside. This is going to be crucial to see the push to pass and whether or not Luke Weston will respond when needed. Will we see it drive down here? I would be personally getting into that slipstream. He has indeed. He must be listening. He's using that push to pass. This will be a job done up the inside down towards turn 1. Brad's trying to open that corner up. Will he get that undercut going down towards the crater curves? Oh, and he has indeed absolutely perfectly judged undercut there into turn 1. That is so far move of the day for me, Jack. Perfectly timed, perfectly judged on the brakes there. And I tell you what, driving very, very well indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Dave. You can see how, because as Brad Smith flew past our screen then, it said 15 on the side of his car. Now, normally, if 15 is illuminated on the side of his car, although having said that, just skip, wait there. Luke Weston does a typical teenage thing and thinks he has 100 lives to live and just sends it up the inside, doesn't he? As he gets a little touch there by Carroll, I tell you what, Brad Smith sends him off. Brad Smith sends Luke Weston into the kitty litter. I've been there far too many times in real life to tell you how horrible it feels to go into that kitty litter, because then it just hurts you all the way down into the final chicane. And just look, it's not only the gap that he's lost to Smith, it's also to Felvis as we're going through the final chicane now. Milner, and
that's
going
close.
to be a touch there. Keep your foot in, your front wheel
well
yes,
rescued.
Very nicely done. Very nicely done, Mr. Milner.
Oh, this has gone 4 abreast down towards turn 1. Oh, luckily it's managed to sort itself out a little bit. Paul Laramie doesn't know which way to try and defend this. Does he defend the outside? Does he defend the in? He tries to defend the outside, and there's a slight touch, forcing him wide. This is going to end up being 3 wide down Craner curves. This is not an ideal scenario, but Simon Thorpe has found himself up into P10, looking very, very racy indeed.
Zanatetchi up to 12th as well as he's looking at the inside of Old Hairpin. Not advisable to lunge someone from that far back into that corner, because you're both probably going to come off the circuit looking rather worse for wear. As Milner, again, really filling the mirrors of some of these drivers, and very much getting involved in on the stream as well. Andy Dorman still leading the way by about 0.6 of a second to Simon Reed. Nicky Taylor about 8 tenths down in third. Then Brad Smith's got a 4.8 second gap to catch up if he wants to try and get a podium out of this race, which is unlikely, to be honest. After that contact with Luke Weston early on, I think he had to wave goodbye to that one. But this battle for what is essentially the top 10 is, I think, the Simon Thorpe at the front end. But having said that, John Jones and Simon Thorpe. Oh, there's a huge contact. Huge contact between Simon Thorpe and I believe that is Paul Laramie. Oh, that is absolutely gutting, because I was about to say the top 10 battle heating up. Well, it's just cooled down a little bit because those drivers are boiled over.
Yeah, and I'll be truly honest, I was looking a little bit further back and didn't actually see what caused that collision, but it looked to me like it was a typical front right to front left, and then once that collision had happened, both drivers basically went different ways. A really unfortunate collision there, but that's just how crucial that last chicane can be, trying to be as late on the brakes as possible. But it's always one of them where it is a little bit sketchy, as you probably know, Jack, to actually try and do someone on the brakes going into there, because it's that tight of a line to try and nail that last chicane. It just ends up always being a little bit argy-bargy going into there.
Yeah, it's a bit touch and go, to be honest, and the curbs are so big as we see Milner off again, as Marmik Satar is actually doing a good job in recovering. Hayden Phillips on the YouTube chat says, hello all. Hello, Hayden. I hope you're enjoying the racing as much as we are, but maybe not as much as Sam Milner is. Because
that looks like damage to me.
Yeah, off the circuit yet again. Has to try and come back for race 2 better and stronger than before. Not always. It's not what you want to see, is it, Dave? When you sort of see these drivers putting so many laps in practice, and then all of a sudden it sort of gets undone in the sort of opening race. But hopefully, as we said, back and stronger. Do correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. But I remember on our first broadcast at Brands Hatch, it was a full reverse grid. What are we doing here tonight?
So it's a reverse top 10. So
top 10.
Currently Jones is on provisional pole. Paul Zanatachi has managed to get his way up from dead stone last in the safety car to P9. So it's a brilliant haul back there by Paul. And I do think he's got more pace than actually his position is letting on. So that reverse grid race from that front row, actually Paul could be a real contender going into the second race.
Luke Weston, after being hit off by Brad Smith, and remember he had about a 3-second gap to try and catch up to Felvers here, and he's done exactly that, and has now got past Felvers, who's really like sunken himself into the gearbox of Weston. But as they go through the final chicane, they both hit their braking zones correctly, and they get through it as well, and Weston just opened up an inch of a gap, shall we say. Got Rich Hayden to catch up next, who hasn't had the most brilliant of starts, as I think Kenny Press is off in the kitty litter, unfortunately, as well. So Milner gets past Press. I think that maybe with a little bit more of a coming together with Paul Laramie, I saw him fall backwards as well. There's a potential, though that is essentially speculation, because I can't confirm that or deny it. Felvers looking very racy down Craner curves, and getting a little, probably more my line, running a little bit wider through Craner curves, and then having to come really aggressive back to the left for old hairpin, whereas Weston keeping it a little bit further left, maybe scrubbing off a bit of speed down the hill to really make sure he's balanced and ready to open up the corner through the right-hander. A couple of different approaches, I suppose, Dave, but all in all, they're both going very quickly.
Yeah, both drivers going very, very quickly indeed. But the thing to bear in mind is, yes, the line choices actually had about the same sort of lap time there, as we can see. But it depends on that steering input. Remember, these cars are front-wheel drive, and if you work them tyres too hard, there's still 6 minutes left of this race yet. And if you're overdriving that front left corner, you'll start to lose that tyre towards the end of the race. And that's where we might see Luke Weston starting to create that gap, because you can see Kyle winds quite a lot of lock on there mid-corner to just try and get it round. What you would find is, even if he backs off, you know, a little bit of them degrees on that wheel, the car would actually still turn just about the same. It's just not scrubbing quite as much. So maybe a little bit early on the brakes needed by Kyle, just so he can wind slightly less lock on to get that car turned up. And it would actually mean he carries a little bit more speed out the corner as well.
It's a very different machine trying to drive a front-wheel drive to a rear wheel, isn't it? It's one that I've never been able to do. I mean, I spent quite a long time at Silverstone on the sim truck as I was helping Rich out, And I spent a long time in the Cupra WTCR car that we're going to be doing a championship with in a couple of weeks' time, and it was a very much a learning experience for me. I couldn't get to grips with it. In about an hour that I spent on it in total, I still couldn't get to grips with it at all. And that's around Silverstone, which is essentially quite an easy track, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is one of those things. If you're a rear-wheel drive specialist, or that's what you normally drive, a front-wheel drive TT, it's very stable, but it is a different driving style.
It is massively, and I harp on about this a little bit too much, Bebby, but if we go to British touring cars and you look at the likes of Ash Sutton, everyone goes, oh, that Infinity is so fast, you know, it's a bit unfair on the grid because it's clearly faster than the other cars. But if you watch, it's actually slower down the straight than some of the likes of the Hondas. Them Hondas are rocket ships down the straight, and they're really good on the brakes. What Ash Sutton can manage to do is he gets the car rotated sooner in the corner, using the throttle to actually turn the car. Obviously, you can't do that in a front-wheel drive. So what it really allows Sutton to do is actually use the throttle to position the car more and get undercuts when the front-wheel drives just cannot defend it. So the likes of what we're seeing at the moment, where all the cars are front-wheel drive, actually means it requires a little bit more technique for a driver to calculate when he needs to get an undercut, because he can't use the throttle to then drive the car up the inside and use it to rotate it.
Yeah, exactly. As Carroll loses a couple of places on Weston and Felvers, within half a lap, he's plummeted down to 8th position. He is trying to get the push-to-pass activated here, but Felvers has done exactly the same thing. And this is what we were saying about the push-to-pass. You can use it defensively, you can use it offensively. And at the moment, if you both use it, you pretty much equal each other out. But that is potentially a brilliant cutback here by Andy Carroll on Carl Felvers. They're getting very close to each other, but not quite touching. Hopefully this continues as Felvers just gets his nose ahead and the rear axle ahead as well. And Carroll has to slot in behind for old hairpin. Weston is pulling away somewhat, but Felvers and Carroll doing a really good job here, and not only providing us with exciting racing, but doing it in a nice, clean fashion that we like to see at the Academy.
Yeah, that is some absolutely fantastic racing. Honestly, you can't believe how scary it is to go down them craner curves, heading towards the old hairpin, when there's millimetres between your bumper and the car in front, and you know if you touch that car in front's bumper, that car is that nervous, let's face it, it's getting spun off into the wall, and it's probably quite a big crash. So very fair play to both drivers there, keeping that incredibly clean. And actually, we just noticed as well, Dorman setting an absolute rocket ship of a lap, an 11.5, half a second faster. Actually, let's not take credit away there. 0.4 of a second faster than the next fastest driver, Nicky Taylor. So Nicky Taylor actually driving very quick indeed, and actually might be looking like a late threat to try and force the gap on Simon Reed up in front.
Yeah, Nicky Taylor's fastest lap is actually good enough to put him around, well, I was going to say pole position actually, but Dorman put an 11.7 in, didn't he, in the end? So not quite pole position material, but still very quick indeed. And so is Rich Hayden actually, a 1:11.993. Luke Weston, a 1:11.81. But obviously you do have to keep in mind, Dave, that the qualifying, you're not allowed any push to passes, whereas in the race you obviously are allowed push to pass. So if you activate push to pass twice, say once in the sort of section we are here after Old Hairpin, and then once going along the start finish straight or around the back or somewhere like that, it can gain you about half a second of lap time as well. Plus the fuel loads might be slightly lower, the track's slightly rubbing in, so there's lots of factors that can differ the time between race time and qualifying, but still extremely quick times that we're seeing around the place. Carl Felvers has really caught up to Luke Weston here. It's very impressive driving by Felvers since he's been overtaken by Weston. He hasn't really looked back at trying to get back past him. As Taylor O'Flanagan and John Jones going side by side into the final corners.
It's a good move.
It is a good move. I feel like this has been a battle that's been sort of bubbling for the entire race, isn't it? This top 10 has been a real exciting sort of crescendo to the race, I'd say, but this one right here that was on our screen, 6th and 7th, is my highlight at the moment, because Felvers just hit that button to add an extra 30 horsepower. He's going to get up the inside to the left-hander, and for McLean's, he's going to be on the outside. Tough place to overtake there. I've tried that and ended up in the gravel, and it doesn't quite happen this time around.
Yeah, so that there for me is actually exactly the time when Carl Kyle has actually lost a push to pass there. He used it, but it was brilliant defending by Luke Weston up into the right-hander, basically meaning that Kyle has just lost a whole push to pass worth when he hasn't managed to get past. So really very, very good defending there by Luke Weston. So Luke will be looking at this now. He doesn't have any push to passes left, and he'll be going, well, there's another lap. I've managed to get Kyle to use a push to pass, and actually he hasn't managed to get even a nose up the inside. So very, very good driving from both these drivers, but Kyle really needs to work out when to use it and when he can get that overlap. So exactly now, if Kyle used that push to pass going down it, in fact, he doesn't have any left. So that's the answer to that one. So Kyle doesn't have any push to passes left. He's got the job done up the inside. A brilliant move down the crane of curves there. And Luke Weston actually looking a little bit on the back foot now. Maybe he can get in that slipstream and help pull himself back onto the back of Kyle and possibly have a move going into the last chicane on this last lap.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is the last lap, so any moves are going to have to be done sooner rather than later, aren't they? As Andy Dorman is going to round out the field. He's going through the last chicane as we speak, actually. So Andy Dorman, there he is on your screens. He's going to take the checkered flag for the first time here at Donington in the Academy, powered by VRRC. Audi TT Cup. Simon Reed comes across the line for a well-deserved second place, and Nicky Taylor rounds out the podium as well in a well-deserved third. Brad Smith, after that contact with Luke Weston, comes across the line in fourth, with Rich Hayden falling down the order but managing to stay in fifth place. Carl Felvis and Luke Weston end in that order in sixth and seventh, with Andy Carroll looking a very battered car by now in eighth. Zanatachi is in ninth place, just crossing the line now. There we go. Marmik Satar, once upon a time in third place, back when his car looked all shiny and new. He will be on pole position for race number 2 with that reverse top 10 grid. John Jones lost out on that 10th place with Marmik coming through. He's in 11th with Taylor O'Flanagan in 12th. Simon Thorpe in 13th and Milner in 14th. Paul Laramie comes across the line in 15th. And Kenny Press rounds out the field in 16th position. He can take a breath, Dave, because it's all done and dusted. Andy Dorman can take a breath, and he really needs to take one or two deep ones as well, because now he's going to have to do it from 10th place.
He is indeed, and this is when it really gets a real test. Yes, he has the pace in the car, but can he get through the grid? This is where I feel Nicky Taylor has the strength. So for all his lap times aren't quite as quick as Dorman, we've seen the way Taylor can get through the pack, and this is when he can really bring some damage and get some points over Dorman for the championship standings. It was a fantastic move by Brad, but I tell you what, for me, driver of the day mark so far is go next to Kyle. Fantastic drive, some very calculated moves going down towards Old Hairpin, requiring a lot of bottle as well. So fantastic drive there by Kyle.
Exactly. As a few of the drivers are just jumping over to the side of the road. That's probably just to spawn themselves into the pits. We'll be able to get our podium sitters in to have a chat, and I can already hear them starting to pop their way in. So I think, Dave, we're just waiting for third place. There we go. You can have a chat to our podium sitters.
We can indeed. So we go down our P3 finisher, Nicky Taylor. Yet again, a really good, solid qualifying position there. But it was the strength of your racecraft, getting you up into P3 and actually putting a lap time good enough for second fastest. So definitely showing you've got some pace in the car.
Yeah, it was an alright race, to be fair. At the start, I went around the outside, which didn't work. And then I went down to about 7th or 8th, which wasn't great. But then I made my way through off the VSC. Restart was really good. Got past Andy and then just worked my way forward. And then made a few mistakes here and there, which I need to clean up on for race 2. But overall, it's a solid performance, I think.
Yeah, it was indeed, bringing it home on the podium. And I've got to quickly ask as well, you know, we've seen that your strength really is the way in which you can try and get through the grid. You know, you put the second fastest lap time there on the board in that previous race, so you must be feeling fair good starting ahead of Dorman, who's behind you on the grid, to try and get through there and actually potentially have a good chance of bringing some of them championship points back in the overall.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm not really focused on most of the racing, to be fair. At this point in the championship, I'm literally just worried about where Rich gets. If I can finish ahead of Rich and Andy, then that's good for the championship. And wins and podiums are good and all, but as long as I finish ahead of them two, then that's all that matters. And just consistently finishing ahead of people that are correct in the championship, then should be good. But Andy's going to be quick in this one, so I'm going to be expecting him to bomb through. But I think we can get a win from here.
Yeah, well, great confidence there, Nicky. And I was always told, don't think of the championship until you're in a position to win it. So that's the advice I got given. Let's see how you get on, and hopefully we'll see some of your fantastic racing coming through on this grid as well.
Oh, cheers.
I'll move forward on our P2 finisher, Simon Reed. A great effort there, and just holding good, solid pace there. Good enough for bringing it home P2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that, especially after the disaster I had last week. But yeah, Andy put in some, really fast lap times in practice, so I was happy to be able to stick with him as well as I did.
And I've got to ask, regarding any sort of strategy and any sort of planning, obviously your aim is to go forward, but what is your goal here in the race 2? Is it just to bring home the car nice and cleanly and make up a few positions, or is it really to try and follow Nicky Taylor through the grid?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would like to get back up and bring in another podium if I can, so it will all be decided after the first corner and where we are there, I think.
Well, looking forward to see it, Simon. Fantastic effort bringing home a P2, and look forward to seeing how you get on in the next race.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll move forward on our P1 finisher. As Simon already said, a fantastic set of laps out there to really create that gap. But it wasn't all plain sailing, was it? You got that gap, and then the virtual safety car came out, and you had that work to do again.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate that coming out, but we managed to get through.
And I've got to quickly ask as well, you've got the pace in the car, but regarding a reverse 10, how hard do you think it's going to be to try and get through and follow some of the drivers there in front?
It's going to be really difficult to get past all the cars in front now. It'll just depend how it all pans out, I think.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing it. Fantastic luck going forward into race 2, but also a huge congratulations on taking P1 here in race 1 of the Audi TT Cup.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave.
And there we go, Jack. A chat with all the podium finishes there, and I think you can tell Nicky Taylor's fancying his chances here to try and get a first place position here through the grid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think some of these drivers really need to... Well, I think they're all probably quietly sort of confident that they can always get through, but some of them are sort of hiding it slightly better. You never know, do you?
Yeah.
They want to play down expectations and touch these racing drivers, don't they? They're very melodramatic in that way. But Marmik Satar on pole position, Zanetechi in second place, Andy Carroll in third. Remember, Satar, I think, is going to take some catching here, Dave, because obviously he was up to third place earlier in race 1, and it was just unfortunate that he ended up falling down. But there's always time to correct it. As the lights come on, the engine notes rise, and we're about to get racing for the second time at Donington Park here for the Academy Audi TT Cup. And it's a good start by Marmik Satar. I don't think it was a fantastic start by Zanetechi. It's an even worse start in the background there. And I'm not sure who that was. Actually, it was Simon Thorpe. So not a brilliant start by him. Satar in first place. Carroll slots into second, and there's a bit of chaos through the first corner. I think Taylor and Reed, because Rich Hayden has fallen off the circuit, unfortunately, as they go down crater curves.
Yeah, it is indeed. And actually, other than that, it was actually a reasonably good start from all the drivers. As we see, Nicky Taylor's up into 6th. Brad Smith is 7th place. Simon Reed and Dorman also both on a very, very good start. So actually, a really good start for the championship here. And all the drivers that currently matter is still fighting hard. And Nicky Taylor, a side-to-side collision, is put him in the gravel. That's going to allow, I believe that is Simon Reed up past Nicky Taylor. So this matters for the championship. Dorman's tucked in right behind him, so he will be looking in that mirror thinking, that is my championship rival that I need to finish ahead of, as we heard. But currently, a brilliant job from Satar up in front. Andy Carroll. On there, Simon Reed got pushed a little bit on. I believe, was that by Brad Smith, maybe? Possibly. But also, side by side here, Andy Dorman battling down towards turn 1. Simon Reed might actually lose out here to John Jones, who might get up the inside as well.
It's a fast and frantic start at the beginning of this Audi TT race, isn't it? I mean, it's exactly what we expected from a reverse grid at the end of the day. Luke Weston in third, Marmik Satar and Andy Carroll are swapping places down into Old Hairpin. Looks like Marmik's on the outside. Andy Carroll has not managed to keep hold of it, actually, so Carroll having to slot into second place. Marmik in first. But look at this cutback. A brilliant opportunistic move for the cutback. He's activated the push to pass. But again, it's not always the best place to go to the push to pass. And Marmik Satar ends up sideways. And it gets his foot in, keeping him in the semi-right direction. As a few of the drivers going 3 wide into the hill. And there we go. There's more contact. That's Brad Smith. And this is... We've mentioned it a couple of times, haven't we, to them since Brands Hatchin at Silverstone about driving standards. And this is the sort of thing that we want to keep a closed lid on, really. We don't want to see this spilling over. And again, more of it as we go into the final chicane. But luckily, both drivers keeping their nose pointed in the right direction. And I think Nicky Taylor's probably going to come out on top in this one against Carl Felvis and Zanatechi. But Andy Carroll has pulled away with it.
He has indeed. And I tell you what, Nicky Taylor's on the outside here. This is incredibly brave, trying to go around the outside of Kyle, going down towards the Great Crows, and he's done it. A brilliant move around the outside there of Kyle. Nicky Taylor's actually got such an overlap of speed. He's going to put up the inside of Paul. Paul's going to try and get back on track. Fantastic car control, and I tell you what, this is going to play right in the hands of Kyle, who's going to have the overspeed on both of them. And look, Dorman in 5th place is looking at this and can't believe he's 4 drivers ahead of him, all running a bit slower. And I tell you what, this is bringing him right into the picture.
Carl Felvis with that push to pass. He put his car right in the correct place, but to be fair to Zanatechi, he did really well in carrying that momentum just off the apex. As the driver flies off the circuit in the background is Marmik Satar. It goes from bad to worse. I don't know if that was contact that time. I think he just had his left wheels off the on the grass, sorry, which was a real shame. As we're focusing on Andy Dorman, who's recovered from 10th place into 5th off that. Obviously, he starts in 10th place. Not really a recovery drive if he won the 1st place and just got put there. But he's still doing a fantastic job as Luke Weston activates the push to pass to try and get past Andy Dorman here. And he looks like he's going to have his nose up the inside into T1. Well, look at that. Andy Dorman going for that really wide line, but the cutback was nowhere near on because... I say it's nowhere near on. It's absolutely on, isn't it? Because Weston went a little bit wide through the corner. O'Flanagan in 9th place with Jones just ahead with a little battle that's going on between those guys heating up slowly.
Velvet, crushing the background.
That's Andy Dorman. Andy Dorman who keeps his foot in, and I'm not sure what happened there. There must have been a bit of contact. Dave, did you see anything? It's an unsafe rejoin off from Dorman there as well. And that's catapulted.
Oh, this is a nightmare for Dorman.
It absolutely is a nightmare. It catapulted it into the tyres as a few drivers are still cross-countrying to try and get back on. There's more contact up ahead, and that's Carl Felvis, one of your driver of the day tips. Unfortunately, falling really far down the order, and that little battle for 2nd place, you just felt like it was going to boil over eventually. That is such a shame.
Yeah, it definitely did boil over indeed. I think that was maybe a case of side-to-side car contact on a driver that was then trying to defend a line coming out of a corner. And you know fine well, Jack, as soon as a driver is committed out of a corner and a driver's got his nose up the inside on the exit, as soon as the outside driver tries to block it and turn across the front, it's game over for that driver because it's front to back wheel. And I tell you what, there's only one driver that wins there, and it's always the driver on the inside.
Yeah, it does tend to be, although you could end up flying into the driver on the outside, just like I think what happened there. I've got a bit of lag. I'm not sure how it's all settled there, unfortunately. I think John Jones and Simon Thorpe have changed. Felvis is in 12th place. I didn't quite see that first corner as there's more contact, and that's John Jones. And a little bit more of a tap for Carl Felvis, but they all get through it just about okay as Milner versus Press seems to be heating up as well. Up the hill to the right-hand side, I think Press is on the inside and is ahead quite comfortably with Milner going for that cutback action.
Yeah, it is indeed. And I tell you what, a driver we haven't touched upon, Andy Carroll, an absolute phenomenal race from the front, currently with over a 5-second lead over Nicky Taylor. So brilliant race at the moment from Andy Carroll. Paul Laramie has got himself up into P6 just ahead of Luke Weston there, and it's Taylor O'Flanagan in 5th place. As we see, I believe that's Sam Milner cutting across the gravel as well. Brad Smith's had a bit of a mare of a race here as well. Just a little bit too much side-to-side contact maybe. Unfortunately, actually, I think slightly less of it from him and more other drivers just giving him a little bit of an elbow here. So very, very unlucky from Brad Smith. But I know Brad, he's a very determined driver and he's got the pace in that car. We saw some fantastic moves in race 1 and I would expect to see Brad Smith climb his way up a good few positions from here, yeah.
I tell you what, there's been so much to keep an eye on here, hasn't it, Dave?
There really has.
It's been hard to keep a track of all the storylines. Normally you can keep an eye on who's doing well and how they've done this, that and the other, but to be honest, it's all blended into one for me because the last 8 minutes or 7 minutes have just completely, it felt like 30 seconds. It feels like we've been on the opening lap for 7 minutes, put it that way, because the action has just been absolutely non-stop. But you're completely correct in what you're saying about Andy Carroll. Did a brilliant job, got a 5.3 second gap between himself and second place Nicky Taylor as Felvers goes up the inside on Kenny Press through the chicane. That's how you're supposed to overtake through that chicane, isn't it? But it does require quite a lot of racing respect from both drivers.
It does indeed. So when you're going up there and braking on the inside line, it almost requires that driver on the outside to then back out of it, realise he needs to get the tuck back in and get the drive through the chicane. So it gets an attempt going down to turn 1 because he has the overspeed. It's when you get a driver that thinks he can go 2x2 through that chicane, and I tell you now, that chicane is far, far too tight for that to be possible.
It absolutely is. It's even still too tight when you go through the Melbourne, the GP loop sort of thing.
It is, yeah.
You flick left and right, which is the one I'm used to doing, to be honest. I only did the one where you initially turn right, the National, which we're doing today. I only ever did that once in my racing career. Look, up ahead, I mean, it's hard to see where to look, to be honest. Kenny Press and Felvers, and it's just lagged for me. Dave, what's happened?
Yes, Kyle Felvers has still managed to keep ahead here of Kenny Press, but Kenny Press is looking very, very racy, and I tell you what, he's got a good amount of push to passes left. But here we go, he's going to try and outbrake Kyle down towards the chicane. This is what I was saying, 2x2 quite often doesn't work, and look who's there trying to take advantage of it all. The overspeed is there now from Rich Hayden, and this is now Paul Laramie having a very good battle there with Luke Weston out of turn 1, but it's Luke Weston late on the brakes, getting that nice and early turn in, and unfortunately that's back to front contact with Kenny Press and Rich Hayden. Unfortunately, I think that was actually tyre contact, which is why it came off so bad there for Kenny Press. Very, very unfortunate. But here's Simon Reed with a move the inside of Paul Zanetechi into the right-hander. He's going to try and brave it around the outside. That's a brave move, Simon. It's going to be side-by-side, going up to the right before the back straight. Paul's going to have the inside line. This is where Simon just needs to back out of it slightly and use one of them push-to-passes as a drag all the way down. He's going to be on the outside line. Don't make this too wide here down the chicane, Simon. This is not going to work. We'll wait and see whether or not Paul backs out of this. I doubt he will. Paul's very late on the brakes going into chicane, but Simon Reed actually with a very similar pace through there, so very good driving from both drivers there. That showed some serious respect as that side-by-side collisions yet again. Paul Zanetechi is going to be up the inside late on the brakes. Simon Reed, will he get the undercut? Perfectly judged just on the undercut. He's got the speed over Paul Zanetechi down Craner curves. That's move done and dusted. Let's see if Simon can create any sort of gap there between him and Paul now while I try and get my breath back.
I was going to say, look, it was a very frantic bit. Well done for covering it, to be honest, because I was still lagging all over the place. So it looked like a very exciting battle as Milner, Jones, and Satar is, again, looking very tasty as well. Satar's had a real bad luck in terms of this race so far. It's obviously, it's not been brilliant. He's in 15th place. Trying to recover a few points, but it's not going to be anything special from him today. He's going on the right line here to try and get up the inside. Into
he's on the grass.
Oh, is he on the grass? Sorry, again, I'm lagging slightly, but he didn't get it stopped. But neither did Milner, who flies off the road, so Satar does get the place in the end.
Yeah, so that was just a case of Satar ended up on the outside of Sam Milner, going up the left-hander, and then actually got the overrun on Jones up ahead, caught out slightly, and actually ended up on the right-hand side on the grass, going towards the right-hander, which, let's face it, was always going to be a little bit risky there. to be fair to him, did very, very well indeed to get that slowed down and stopped and not cause a crash there on that right-hander. Rich Hayden's managed to get up the inside of Kyle. Kyle might give him a little cheeky nudge here on the exit, but I tell you what, look who is in 11th place, doing very, very well to try and crawl this back. Brad Smith nearly in that top 10. Fantastic drive from him.
Yeah, Andy Carroll, 5 points. He's extending the gap, to be honest. Every single lap he's gone a little bit quicker, so him versus Nicky Taylor is only a battle that seems to be in Nicky's dreams, to be honest. Andy is just absolutely flying. As looking up the inside there, Brad Smith on Carl Felvers, who, remember, is one of these drivers that was doing extremely well at the beginning of this race and, of course, in the last race, but it just it hasn't happened for him in this race number 2, in this second half especially. He's going to have to try and recover and just go again next time out, but it's been a big shame for Carl so far.
It has indeed, and I tell you what, the more and more I look, the impressive drive from Andy Carroll, currently just done an 11.9. So Andy Carroll setting incredibly good lap times. Nicky Taylor did a 1:11.8 on his best lap. So that's the best lap time I believe we've seen being put on the board currently. But I tell you what, that the inconsistency of Nicky Taylor is what's not allowing him to catch back up. Andy Carroll is consistent within a 10th or 2 each lap in, lap out. That's side-to-side collisions between Simon Thorpe and Rich Hayden. Simon Thorpe's up the inside going down Crater Curves. Rich Hayden's going to try and close the gap a little bit. That was a little bit naughty there by Rich Hayden, I would say. Simon Thorpe doing very well not to lose control altogether, but it's Brad Smith who's taken advantage yet again of a collision up ahead. Brad Smith's found himself up in the P8. Paul Laramie up ahead in P7 in a bit of no man's land. So brilliant result here for Paul Laramie as well after a very unfortunate race 1 there. And this is Andy Dorman and Rich Hayden side by side. This is a big championship battle going on at the moment.
It absolutely is, isn't it? Rich Hayden on the inside going into the final corner. Andy Dorman's going to have to do what he can, and he does it quite well as well. I think he used a bit of push to pass and he clatters over the curve, so I think that's going to ruin his run, as is Rich Hayden. They both use their push to passes actually, so Rich does look to be getting back up the inside of him into T1. We'll have to see how it goes. Late on the brakes goes Rich, but Andy's trying to carry all the speed and momentum around the outside. Good amount of space and respect left between both of them.
Yeah, that's a brilliant move by Dorman. They're very, very committed on the brakes, rolling the speed into the corner. That takes some serious commitment, some serious trust in the driver that you're racing against. It looks to me like Dorman's struggling quite a lot with front end grip and also top end speed on that car, so quite a lot of aero damage there. So he's trying to keep all the speed round the corners as possible to keep Hayden behind, but it isn't enough. Rich Hayden's managed to get back up the inside of Andy Dorman, and actually looks like he's starting to pull a little bit of a gap now on Dorman there. And actually Simon Thorpe looking very, very racy indeed, and might find himself on the back of Dorman as well.
Yeah, it's all getting a bit exciting, isn't it, really, towards the end of this second race. 5 minutes to go, essentially. And Carroll's still in the race lead by quite some substantial distance. Nicky Taylor, Simon Reed, Paul Zanatechi, and Taylor O'Flanagan around out your top 5. Then you've got Luke West and Paul Laramie. And then you've got this battle. Brad Smith. Sorry, this is the battle with Paul Laramie, actually, because Brad Smith is the chasing car, the second in this little train, and looking very interested in trying to take away 7th place from Paul Laramie. But without that push to pass down the hill, it's not going to happen into Old Hairpin. Comes on to the brakes a touch early, tries to spot his braking points. Very difficult, isn't it, going through the likes of Old Hairpin if you're hunkered up right behind the driver. As Brad Smith with the push to pass. I don't know, he's going to be on the outside into McLean's. Is he going to have enough speed? Oh, I'll tell you what, that's easy done, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, so this is exactly what I was talking about. We did a Q&A session early on in the week, and I said if you can back off slightly earlier on the run into the Old Hairpin and then use that push to pass on the exit, use that power the whole way up the hill, that's when that 30 horsepower is going to be worth its absolute most. If you use that 30 horsepower going downhill, you won't pull on a car the same way as if a car's trying to go uphill. So fantastic work there from Brad Smith, using that push to pass exactly when it was needed and actually made it incredibly easy for him to get past Paul. There was nothing Paul could have done there to try and defend that. So there wasn't any point in trying to defend it because they would have lost too much time. So fantastic driving from both drivers. But it's this driver here, Andy Carroll, with 3 minutes left of the race, with over a 5-second gap still. Very, very good drive indeed. Last lap of 1:12.1. His best lap of 1:11.9. So you can see he's lapping consistently within 0.2 of a second there. Nicky Taylor, actually, to be fair, has also gone and put in a 1:11.8 last lap, and his best lap was also 1:11.8. So Nicky doing a very good job and seeming like he's got a bit more grips with this car and track combo now, and I think that's going to be enough for him to just hang on to that second place ahead of Simon Reed there in third.
Yeah, only the top two have actually put in a 1:11, haven't they? I mean, Simon Reed has come awfully close, and he's gone green in sector 1, so you never know, he might actually get a 1:11 on this particular lap. We'll just hold on and see as he comes across the line. There was a 1:12.2 in that previous one, but yeah, a 1:12 dead essentially for Simon Reed on his best lap as well. So they're really going very well. Carroll has earned his lead, hasn't he? It's not like he's just inherited it and is just living on borrowed time. He got to the front, and to be fair, then everybody started fighting over each other, and that gave him a 2-second gap, but he's only gone and extended it throughout the rest of the race. So it's been very impressive by Andy Carroll. Nicky Taylor as well, doing a good job to catch up, but we have to start thinking about driver of the day, to be honest, don't we, Dave? And I would have agreed with you at one point about Carl Felthus. In 9th place, he's done quite well, as we're just seeing Andy Dorman getting past Rich Hayden again. This battle, yet again, ensuing for a little bit longer as Dorman tries to go around the outside of Rich. And I tell you what, they're both giving each other really good respect now, going through the latter stages of this race. The last thing they want to do is DNF. Having said that, Rich looks on the inside, and I thought there was going to be contact there. Dorman did a fantastic job, Dave, didn't he? And just leaving enough room because he knew Rich might stick his nose at the inside of it, but it didn't quite happen. Laramie defending from Carl Felthus, and it looks like it's lagged, so I can't quite see what's happened.
Yeah, so it looked to me like Kyle Felthus there judged that perfectly, and it's actually meant he's got a little bit of overspeed here on Paul Laramie down to turn 1. So this is going to be interesting. He's probably going to be quite late on the brakes. Is he going to just try and tuck back in and get the speed through turn 1? He is indeed. So he's tucked nicely back in behind Paul Laramie. He's got his lights on. He is hungry for this, Jack. He's going to go down Craner curves. This is where it's crucial not to get too close to the back of Paul Laramie in front. It's get the overspeed, get the advantage. So now, get that push to pass on, get past Paul Laramie up the outside. He hasn't selected it, which does surprise me. Maybe he just thought he wasn't quite close enough there. So Kyle is still tucked in behind Paul here. For me, the way he races this now could depend on whether he gets driver of the day or not. For me, he's still done an incredibly impressive drive here. And look at how clean his car is still. That tells me he hasn't been too aggressive with other drivers, and he's managed to judge gaps perfectly.
Rich Hayden falls off the circuit. Not sure how it happened between himself and Andy Dorman, but it's unfortunate, really, because it was a really good race up until that point. Dorman and, well, luckily Rich hasn't lost
look at the
amount
overspeed.
of gaps. Yeah, the overspeed is huge here, and look at that. He's desperate for the inside into T1.
Oh, he's done it.
Is Laramie going to give him the gap? There is a gap, just about an Audi TT's width there to try and fit himself up to the inside, and Felthus gets into the lead of this little battle. But look at that switcheroo there by Paul Laramie. He's learning this game quickly, isn't he, Dave? He knows the tricks of the trade by now. The cutback absolutely flying as they go down the hill. They've only got one. Carl Felthus, I think, has one push to pass left. Paul Laramie doesn't have any. And as they go up the hill, this will be the final lap of the race. And here it goes for Carl Felthus. And what's happened to Laramie? He just seems to have... he didn't quite pull up, but I don't think Felthus used the push to pass, did he?
No, so Felthus didn't have a push to pass there left, but I don't know whether Paul Laramie's maybe struggling with a bit of straight line speed. It would surprise me, but look, Dorman now all over the back of...
Andy Carroll wins. Andy Carroll takes
just
the
as we
victory.
got there.
He's so far ahead of everybody else. We were so focused on that. Nicky Taylor comes home in second place. Simon Reed in third. Zanatechi fourth. Luke Weston fifth. Taylor O'Flanagan comes across the line and does very well in sixth place. As we're still seeing this fight between Paul Laramie and Andy Dorman. Carl Felvers comes across the line to take 8th. Dorman comes across the line to take 9th. Laramie rounds out the top 10. Rich Hayden ends up having to settle for 11th place. Satar was on pole position, ends up in 12th. Simon Thorpe in 13th. John Jones and Sam Milner in 14th and 15th. And then Kenny Press was in the pit lane. So that's pretty much all they wrote. But sorry to cut you off, Dave, there, but we really didn't expect that Andy Carroll would finish the race quite yet. It was because the pack we were looking at were about half a lap behind.
Yeah, so it was a brilliant battle, but it shows how much Andy Carroll really managed to take advantage of the battles going behind him and open up that lead. Fantastic drive there from Carroll, showing super consistent driving and also no sort of mistakes through the pressure. I believe this might be one of his first wins with VRRC, so I'm sure we'll find that out on the interview with him, but I tell you what, I bet that win means a lot.
I bet it does as well, and I think you and me are both agreed for driver of the day. It's going to be Kyle Felvers with driver of the day, and a big reason for that, because I know you were voting for him anyway, Dave, but a big reason why I'd say I would agree with you is not just his race 1, which really put him on the map, but his race 2, he fell down the order and he managed to get his head back on and fight back, didn't he? And he got himself up to a respectable position with some really good, close and respectful racing as well. So I agree with you. Carl Felvers for driver of the day. But with that slightly aside, let's go and hear Dave Marshall speaking to our podium sitters.
Yeah, so first of all, we'll go down to our P3 finisher, Simon Reed. It was yet again another fantastic drive through the grid, but I tell you what, it was not easy to try and fight through that traffic, was it?
Absolutely not. Yeah, it's very difficult to get past in these cars, and luckily for me, there was a few incidents in front of me which made my life a bit easier getting around them. Luckily, I didn't get tangled up in them.
Yeah, well, one of your big championship rivals, Andy Dorman, obviously very much did get tangled up amongst all of that. I take it this is a bit of a confidence boost now regarding the championship, thinking, you know what, this is still on, I can still pull my way back through this.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I was sitting 7th, I think, or 8th in the championship after last week, and yeah, certainly this is a much needed haul of points.
Yeah, definitely. Huge congratulations, Simon, bringing it home P3 on the grid. We'll move forward on our P2 finisher. Nicky, you said it was on for the win, but Andy Carroll just stretched his legs that little bit too early and managed to create that gap. And for all, you were lapping very, very fast and actually set the fastest lap time of the race. Just the damage was done too early on in that race, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I had damage to the front bumper from, I think, earlier incidents, which the Kyle and Paul incident was a bit like hit and miss. I don't think many of our drivers could have done anything about that. But yeah, I was pushing through and literally got through to the pack. And then by the time I got through to second and made my way up the grid, Andy had already gone. So I just focused on literally going through fast laps and then saved 2 push-to-pass laps for the last lap, and then screwed up my last chicane, which would have been quicker because I was 2/10 off my last lap. But oh well, it is what it is. Third and second, and yeah, good for the championship.
I mean, that is typical Donington, though, isn't it? It's all about that last chicane. You can do the best lap ever in the first 2 sectors, but if you don't nail that last chicane, the lap is completely gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I braked too late, and then I hit the inside curve fine and just got prepared, and then hit the left-hand curve and just hit it at a wrong angle and went onto the grass. But other than that, today's been pretty decent race day. On to the next one and hope see what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good championship haul for you, and I do believe provisionally that makes you championship leader going into the next round as well. So fantastic effort there, Nicky, bringing it home in P2, and looking forward to seeing what you've got next round out.
Cool, cheers.
I will move forward on our P1 finisher, Andy Carroll. I didn't want to curse it because you were that far ahead, so there was nothing said about you going on to take P1. Was it your first P1 with VRRC?
I think that is my first P1. I've had a P3, I think.
Well, there it is,
Yeah,
and a convincing one at that, Andy. Over 5 seconds to P2. All the damage was done at the start, though, wasn't it? It was a great drive from you from the get-go to get that gap, but also it was your consistency that just helped you keep pulling away all the way to the end of the race.
yeah, I got a good start. I think I got past Paul before turn 1, and then it was just had a bit of rubber banding with Marmik, so I was trying to stay out of his way, but in the end, kind of just had to kind of drive my own race, and I think there was a bit of contact, unfortunately. But yeah, and then I think the guys behind just held each other up a bit, which let me get a good lead, and then just kind of watching the gap to Nicky, and it was kind of up and down a little bit, and then just kind of tried to use my push to pass to kind of keep my lap time as low as possible, and then just managed to keep it at a steady gap, and then finally on the last corner I could kind of relax a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to quickly ask, regarding the pressure, I take it that's when you're in P1, you've got a good comfortable gap, you're trying to concentrate on your lines on the track, but all you're really thinking is, I'm so close to taking my first victory.
Yeah, the eyes kept flicking to the leaderboard to see what the gap was, and it was kind of first few laps it was moving a bit, but then it sort of settled down, and it was kind of a bit more just focus on getting to the end at that point.
Well, huge congratulations, Andy, on taking P1 here in the Audi TT Cup. Hopefully it's the sign of things to come and progress forward into the next round. As I said, huge congratulations. Well done, Andy.
Thanks,
Carroll.
Dave. Cheers.
And also, a quick word before we go off. Kyle Felvis voted our driver of the day. I think it was the cleanest car out there on track, but also some fantastic moves out there that allowed you to be rewarded for driver of the day.
Yeah, thanks. Had a few incidents in that second race, but got spun from P2. But like Nicky said earlier, there was nothing we could really do. 3 wide into that corner doesn't work. And just then gain some places later on.
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic recovery drive, but it was a fantastic race one from you as well. Saw some brilliant moves and some brilliant undercuts there as well. So huge congratulations, Kyle. Well done for taking our driver of the day.
Thank you.
And there we go, Jack. A very, very dramatic Donington Park. But it wouldn't be Donington without that, would it?
It absolutely wouldn't. No, I mean, it's brilliant to have all the drivers come in and sort of share their experiences just then as well. Donington, I mean, for those guys who have been involved in sim racing for a little while or watched real life racing, everyone knows Donington's one of the best well-rounded circuits on any calendar, really. If you look at the touring cars, I was thinking about running through it at Silverstone, the touring car calendar, and to be honest, in my opinion, Alton Park's a brilliant circuit. Obviously, Silverstone's got a lot of heritage, and Snetterton's very good, but it's difficult to overtake. Donington, you can overtake at 2 or 3 opportunities. It's nice, it's fast, it's flowing, and it's brilliant for spectators as well. So I think everyone will agree it's been absolutely awesome to host the TTs here this evening. Nicky Taylor rounds out the evening by being top of the championship as well, by a full 10 points ahead of Andy Dorman, who won't be too pleased with that how that second race went, really, because obviously he was doing very well, then got knocked back and still finished pretty decently, but still not as well as he was probably hoping. 83 points he's currently on. Rich Hayden in 3rd with Luke Weston. In 4th, Simon Reed ended up in 5th, but look at the point difference between Luke Weston and Simon Reed. Only 1 in it between the 4th and 5th place drivers. And then I'll read you down to 10th place, because why not? Brad Smith in 6th, Carl Felvis in 7th, Marmik Satar in 8th, Paul Zanatechi is in 9th, and 10th being Andy Carroll, who obviously will be helped with a points haul after that win there as well. So, Dave, it's been an absolute brilliant evening of racing. We're going off to Snetterton next week. So the drivers, I can tell you already, Nicky Taylor and Andy Dorman and Paul Laramie are already in the server and they're already practicing, which is absolutely amazing, isn't it? But you'll have to tune in next week to see how that gets on. Any closing thoughts from you, Dave?
For me, we're going to Snetterton. It's probably the track that I think the TTs are going to show the most strength at. We've got the biggest straights on Snetterton. It's the highest speed track that we've got on the circuit. I just really think that Snetterton is going to deliver the proper overtakes that we were expecting to see. So very excited to see how Snetterton is next round out.
Yeah, looking forward to it. If you're looking forward to it out there as well, then you should be liking, following, and subscribing to the VRRC or wherever you're watching this from, basically, because you know it's going to be back next week, and we've got so many things in the pipeline as well. And just before we go, if you are interested in getting involved and maybe you don't want to become a member or something like that quite yet, but you want to have a go and see what it's like to be part of the VRRC community, well, we do run free races now. There are 3 servers open every single day that you can jump on for a set of courses, as long as you have the mods, like the tracks and the cars, obviously, which you can get from the VRRC Discord server as well. And you can jump on and you can race in every single day, and that's absolutely free. There's also fun races on a Sunday evening as well. I think it's the Euro V8 around some fancy circuit. I can't actually remember what it's called at the moment, but it's basically, it'll rotate throughout the weeks, and there'll be sort of fun combinations to be putting out there as well. It should be really good stuff. And if you want to get involved with the Academy, then send us a message as well. I'd be pleased to have you down. My name's been Jack Oliphant. Dave Marshall's been alongside me as per usual, with Tom O'Farrell on the comms and the broadcast. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you this evening, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Between the two of them, the inside of coats, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.